Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces here tonight. If I have not had the opportunity yet to greet you personally, Shalom Aleichem. My name is Yehuda Dukes, and on behalf of JNET, I would like to welcome you to our 6th annual Evening of Appreciation, Tafshin Ayin Tes. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time, I hope that you will be inspired by the experience here tonight.
Als dem kein Meister Echer durchstellen kann und dem kein Talmidecher durchstellen kann oder Talmidin, und dem kein Talmidis kann oder Talmidin. Nur wie mit Huir in Kabbalah und Chassidus und ich mir nur an die Klolis Terrazena, als alle Jiden sein nach Kema, Achas, Schleimer, und als die Schatzen, die geht da weg, noch Leachas, mehr weg in Scholle. Die haben schon mal nichts gesehen. Aber dann, sie geht darüber in eine meine Dumatte. Und dann ist ihr Kiel, Laalio mit Darde, Heinstoff und Meise hat Achtenin, am Stell zu den Kämen, Kammer, Lebedige, Talmidi, Stell zu Hanalio, mit Dardo, Mechail, Lechoil, in dem Schomer, was meize Siba Shekiria ist nicht auf die Bnei Yom. Und das, was wir da dessen bei den Lebischen und an der Trotten zählten dazu, das soll sein nicht in der Nation von Neitchot, die an Nachsobi, noch das soll sein mit der Simcha, Vetur, Vov, und Bechesed, und Berachmin, als mit der Fehler Simcha, Vesossen, wie Kora soll Meize sein in Nesbit und der Rike. Menschen seinen Leben, der Leben, und das soll sein, Aribu de Kamo, in Aribu de Jechus, bis in der Nation von Oparat, Yono, Vakedma, Vesafena, Vonegbo, bis Yale, Haperes, Lefanenu, Vadishem, Beresha.
Family and friends, and in that we probably include the entire Jewish world and beyond, are gathering here tonight, virtually connected, to remember, to learn, to digest, and to learn, to relive the life of Chaim Shneir Zalman Yehuda ben Yibodel Chaim Tovim Baron Leib. Yudi, who we've gotten to know over so many years, really became to the forefront of the challenges and what life for all of us became over the last 12 horrific, treacherous months. We are taught that the living must take to heart, and tonight we will delve into the different aspects and the different parts of Yudi's life, hear from his friends, from his family, from his children, and be able to take away meaningful lessons on how we can keep his memory alive. To start tonight's program, we will start with a Kapitel Tehillim, And it is my privilege to call up Yisrael Dukes to lead us in the Tehillim. Come over here. Come stand over here. As was Yudi's custom, which we'll talk about soon, we're going to ask everybody who comes onto the stage tonight to start with a coin in the special pushka that was in Yudi's hospital room.
Where until where? Ashrei Simmi Derech Al Chamasar Sadinai, Ashrei Nisrei Elisa Bechali Yidushu Af Lefalu Avla Bidbrachav Halacha Wa'atzot Tivisa Fikudacha Lishmar Ma'id Achalai Ikainu Debracha Lishmar Chukacha Azloi Ebash Habit Ti El Kol Mitzvasecha Adacha Yashar Livab Vladati Mishpati Zidkecha Eschokecha Eshmar Ad Azvini Ad Ma'id. Tavi? Take Rav. Nisi Lefanacha Dinai Kitvarcha Havanini Tavai Sechi Nasi Lefanacha Kimrasecha Hatzilini Te Abate Taba Na Safasa Tehila Ki Sam Mendeni Chukachatan Lashani Imrasecha Ki Chol Mitzacha Tzadek Tehi Yadacha Lerzni Ki Fukadacha Vakharti Tavti Lertezacha Dinai Vaser Secha Shashuai Tehi Nafshi Uslaka Mishpatacha Yazvoni Tasi Kisa Ave Bakesh Adavchaki Inspirational Lech Shachachti.
Beautiful.
My name is David Schottenstein, and I had the pleasure of getting to know Yudi. I actually was in yeshiva with Yudi. I didn't know him that well then. Our wives became good friends, and I got to spend some time with Yudi, actually quite a bit of time with him through phone, in person, prior to his passing. The year leading up to his passing, every day I did Birchas Kainim on video with him. And some days he was alert, conscious. Some days he was not conscious. Whenever he was conscious, no matter what state he was in, he always made a tremendous effort to answer Amen to each blessing. And I know the blessing meant a lot to him. And I wanted to, tonight, this night of Shloshim, I wanted to say the blessing, which I know meant the world to Yudi, to his wife and his children, and bless them with only simchas and only things to smile and be happy about for the rest of their lives. Only blessings and only tremendous levels of happiness in every single area of their lives. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el Aaron ve'el banav lemor, kais avarchu es b'nei Yisrael, emer lehem, yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasein lecha shalom, v'samu es shemi al b'nei Yisrael, v'ani avarchem.
The Indian of Ufaratsta, who can break out of all boundaries any perceived boundaries of falling, we can overcome. So my bracha to you tonight is that you should have the koyach and the awareness that you have the strength to do ufaratsta. Wherever your shlichus is, you can break any boundaries that you have or you think you have. L'chaim.
L'chaim, 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 l'bracha. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da-da. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da. Did-it-a-la-la-da-da-da-da. Hi, did-it-a-la-la.
Support JNET, the great organization.
Oh my. Oh, that's wonderful. Tonight's program, we're going to open up and invite some of the people that were close to Yudi to share some insight about how he was as a person, his dedication, and his whole Übergegebenkeit to his Shlichus, the transformation and the way he used the opportunity, even without knowing it, together with his wife Sarah, throughout the whole ordeal and his medical situation. And we're going to end off in hearing about his family life. Yudi, for anybody who knew him, was one of the most sincere, emistika, good-hearted, grateful people that I have ever met. Someone who every detail mattered to. Someone who, just as an example, about 8 years ago at a Kinnis HaShloshim, there was an initiative that matched and paired random shluchim together to speak. For most people, it lasted a month, 6 months. For Yudi, every single Monday morning, without fail, he made sure to call a shliach in Pittsburgh to ask him how he's doing, to give him chizuk, and to be his friend. Again and again, we saw this amazing virtue by Yudi, the virtue of sincerity. His life as a Balkaira, anybody who knew him knew that anything he did to the fullest extent. Whether it was going to different shoals, helping people find Bali Kriya, giving it his all. So without further ado, Yudi lived in a community that stepped up to the plate, and I'm going to give a disclaimer and hopefully ask for forgiveness in advance, because really, if we were just to list each and every individual who deserves to be thanked on behalf of the family and on behalf of the friends, we probably would be here all night and still counting. Over the last 10 months, really, the amount of people who gave selflessly on so many levels who is exemplary. It's really unbelievable. I've watched a lot of it up close, and I'm finding out more and more just different people taking on different roles and responsibilities. We're going to mention and single out a few, not because everybody doesn't deserve to be mentioned, but because those are the ones that either I remember or there's a specific reason. But every single one of you, I need to start off by saying a tremendous thank you. And this is as Yudi as a person would want. Da'akaras ha'toiv. He would get up and he would really not only say thank you to each individual, he would find something nice and thank you for the thing that you did, whether it was the Tikkahilim groups that were set up, the meals that were prepared, the babysitters that were there, the visits to the hospitals, the medical staff across the board, the help to his family, to his kids, the yeshivas, the personnel at the yeshivas, the way they stepped up and they stepped forward. Each child has their friends and their friends' families, and they're stayed over in people's houses, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. It really, really does. So please take this as a heartfelt thank you, hakaras hatov, on behalf of Yudi, on behalf of Sarah, on behalf of the kids, on behalf of their parents, on behalf of his friends, his chaverim, his adopted families. This really, really, really is something that we cherish, we appreciate, and you should all be rewarded from the Eibishter. He knows what you did, and Yudi now is in the Olam HaEmes, and he knows everything that you did, and forgive us for not singling you out if we don't. But Yudi lived in a community, and that community, under the leadership of the Shliach, Rabbi Zalman Wallowik, and his Rebbe Tzimchani, as well as the other Shluchim, Rabbi Meir and Adasa Gaizinski, and the entire community really stepped forward from the first day to adopt, to Zedi Simcha, to adopt the kids and the family and everything that they need. And it is my privilege to introduce Rabbi Zalman Wallowik to share a few words of inspiration about Yudi's personal life.
Coins are nice, but bills are better. To keep the tradition, we'll do a coin also. Good evening. Sarah, Mandy, Baruch, Yisrael, Shalom, Shani, Shana, Moshe, and the Dukes and Spangenthal families and extended families, all gathered here this evening, and all who are gathered via media as part of this evening's reflecting on Yudi's life. I was asked to address Yudi as Yudi. Now, Yudi as Yudi does not want us to speak about him, because that's how Yudi is. But Yudi as a Chosid, the true Yudi, wants the v'achayit in a liboy, as the Rebbe constantly reminded us that at times of this nature, if we can gain inspiration and walk away with a message, that's what Yudi wants. The Gemara tells us regarding titles that there are many titles that can be given to a person. But Godol Meirabon Shmoy, the greatest title is his name. What that name expresses and means. So therefore, Yudi is that greatest title. If we can sum up Yudi in a nutshell, Chosid B'chol Ma'asov, In all of his actions, he was a true chassid. Starting from his morning routine of going to the mikveh, learning chassidus usually with a talus on his shoulder, davening in a fashion that reflected kavanah the way a chassid davens, followed by his daily shiurim. He would walk with a big pile of svarim every day and did not miss a day of his shiurim. As a family person, what a husband. Dedicated to every detail of the family, every detail of each and every one of the children, and did it with joy. Whether it meant driving the children to and from yeshiva every day, whether it meant doing for the house nonstop, because that was his joy and his simcha, whether it meant including his children in the life of shlichus, recognizing that they were a shliach and that they are shluchim, whether it was in the official job of shlichus at JNET or in daily life at Chabad, being mekabel kol adam b'sever ponim yofos, greeting every person with a shining countenance and with a smile, would inspire people by being a dugma chaya, living example, a tremendous bal menagin, loved the chassidish nigun, and would share it in great detail. And if you were off on the detail, he would let you hear it, because it was important. A nigun had something beyond. It wasn't just a song. It was a nigun, and a chassidish nigun. A bal koira read the Torah, read the Megillah, did it with such great detail and perfection. And for that matter, all who heard Yudi reading the Torah wanted him to tutor their children, and for that matter, their adults themselves, to learn how to read the Torah. And with Yudi reading the Torah, it wasn't just reading. You had to know how to pronounce every word precisely. And at times, there could have been a yeshiva student may not have really picked up how to read, or was somewhat weak in his reading. Yudi taught him how to read, literally how to read. Or whether it was an adult who decided at an older age to have a bar mitzvah. Howard, who was, I know, on the schedule, would not make it to speak this evening. Howard Kogan is just an example, a dugma, of how Yudi took a yid and really became not just a bar mitzvah tutor, but a mashpia, teaching him even after he read the Torah and had his bar mitzvah in his 50s. He continued to learn with Yudi on a regular basis because he gained a passion and a friendship that was there with heart and soul. When Yudi was asked to give over a Maimonides Hasidic discourse, he didn't just read it. He didn't just do it like a machine. He explained it, that all around the table can understand it. For that matter, we saw that at his last birthday from his hospital room. When he said the Maimonides, he said it with heart and soul, and every detail was understood to all who tuned into it. So in conclusion, a chassid, he lived a life the way the Rebbe wanted him to live. A great person, a mekusher b'leiv nefesh. His heart and soul was always, what would the Rebbe want of me? So we stand today at Shloshim. The Rebbe quoted by the Shloshim of his wife, the Rebbe Tzachaya Mushka. He alluded to the Rambam, that Shloshim lebechi vayitmu yimei b'chiyei vel Moshe, that it comes a time that we end the stage to move on to the next stage. A lot of tears have been shed, and I'm sure will be shed. In our almost 26 years of shlichus, this past year was one of the most challenging years. We are fortunate to have partner shluchim. Obviously, my wife and the Gaizinskis. We could never do it alone, and for that we're grateful. Sarah, children, parents and grandparents, I have no words to comfort you. The loss is greater than words, but I want to wish you that we should gather for Simchas. You should have a lot of nachas in the family. Hashem should give you all the strength needed to move ahead. And we do pledge, together with our partner Shloshim, the Gaizinskis, that we will be there with you and for you throughout. And we all pray for a time that Akitzu Veranu Sheikh Neyofor, a time that will hopefully come very soon, when we'll be reunited with Yudi and with all loved ones with the coming of Mashiach.
Go.
My name is Chaim Ben Ushak Hogan. I was a student, and I am a friend and admirer of Rabbi Yehuda Dukes. At the tender age of 63, I was bar mitzvahed, a miracle unto itself, as I was raised in a home devoid of God and any religious devotion. I always felt that God was watching over me, and I know that it is His hand that moves the chess pieces on the board. He must have decided that it was time to reclaim and reforge one of His Jews. He sent out a selected crew to bring me back into the fold: Rabbi Wallowik, Chani Wallowik, Shalom Jacobs, and many others, but most especially my Yehuda. Rabbi Dukes is one of the many gifts of light that God sends to us when He wants to change our lives. He holds them out to us and places them within our reach, but it is for us to have the wisdom and desire to take them. I grabbed Yehuda Dukes with both hands, and I am still holding on to him today, even as I read you this message. Because of this gentle soul, I was able to study and learn enough to read some Torah and be bar mitzvahed. However, this was good, but not enough. Yehuda wanted me to learn more than to read one parsha on one day. We talked for hours about the meaning of Jewish life. Yehuda taught me that in Judaism, everything has meaning and that learning is everything. He told me that the most beautiful thing a Jew could do in his life was to learn. When I visited him in the hospital, he was upbeat and determined. Chaim, you just wait. We are going to learn together again. You will see. I never saw him again. So I asked the Almighty to care for the soul of my friend and teacher, Yehuda Dukes. He brought us much joy, and we loved him well. But by your will, he was not ours to keep. Yehuda, thank you for helping to set my feet on a different path, a better path. And in return, I will honor your memory with a commitment to study and to learn and to live a righteous life under the watchful gaze of God.
To represent Yudi's friends, we're going to go live to Montreal, where a lifelong childhood friend that grew up with Yudi and went on shlichus and was his best friend for many years will share some words. Rabbi Menachem Posner in Chicago, live in Chicago. Rabbi Menachem Posner, who is an editor at Chabad.org. Please.
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. First of all, to my dear friend Yudi, Chaim Shner Zalman Yehuda, whose name has been a household name in our home and in homes all over the world over the past year, as we each davened for him and lived with him and continue to live with him each and every day. L'chaim, l'chaim. In truth, it's l'chaim because we are celebrating life. When I came here, I realized I had a problem, and that was that so much of what I had planned to say, you've heard already, and you're certainly going to hear from others. But I realized that's okay, because this is the truth, and the truth is consistent from beginning to end, and we all saw the same truths. If I were to write a book of Yudi's and Sarah's amazing example over the past year, it could fill a book. If we write a book over the inspiration we gleaned, it could fill a book. We could fill a book with Yudi's enthusiasm, with the way he cared for JNET, with the way that he and Sarah exemplified bitachon, faith in Hashem. I can fill a book with the way that Yudi spoke about his kids as a friend, and I was privy to see how he cared about each child, their development, what they were up to, how they were progressing, how we can help each one grow and nurture each one, and the list goes on and on. But instead I want to share some small anecdotes and things that I've seen. We read that Hashem's Rachmav al Kol Ma'asav, His mercy and His love extends to everybody. And Yudi was that way. He didn't limit himself to friends, family, fellow Jews, even human beings. Yudi was a lover of animals. When we were in yeshiva in Budapest, and there were 2 little stray kittens who showed up at the yeshiva. It was Yudi who took care of them. We named them, and we were so sad when one of them passed away. And he endeared himself to everybody. There was I guess you'd call him an eccentric old man who used to hang around the yeshiva. And Yudi became his friend, as he became everybody's friend. And one day I remember he came to yeshiva with a little envelope as a gift for Yudi. And we were curious, what was in that envelope? What would it be? And Yudi opened the envelope, and he discovered that it contained a skinny tie. That's the way it looked like then, and it probably looked now, it was like a long, skinny, dead fish. At that point, the style was to have very fat ties, and this skinny tie was probably 30, 40 years old, but he knew that Yudi wore ties on Shabbos at that time. And he thought that this would be the gift that he can give his dear friend Yudi, was a 50-year-old tie. Everybody responded to him in that way because he had that way of drawing each person out and making each person feel special and comfortable to give back in return. Yudi loved adventures, and I don't necessarily mean rock climbing, but he was always happy to experience something new, including languages. I saw, and many of his friends saw, in France, he learned French. In Hungary, he learned Hungarian. In Buenos Aires, he learned Spanish. In Hungary, he learned Hungarian. Somehow, through osmosis, he spoke Hebrew, Yiddish. Every language was a pathway with which he could connect with other people. And this was the way he adventured around. We came to Hungary as 8 young Americans. Most of us are still trying to find their way how to get to the corner store and order a Coke. At that point, he'd already figured how to get to the Jewish cemetery in Hungarian to visit his ancestors and get back, all in public transport. That's just how he did it. And that was how he, there was that same spirit that caused him to, I know, that he connected to relatives all over the globe. When we were in Hungary, his relatives in Munich, everywhere in the world, wherever there was a Dukes or any other, person, second cousin, third cousin, fourth cousin, it didn't matter to him. There were dear cousins, dear relatives to whom he, instantly connected. And that same joy was everywhere. He was the one person you could share the worst pun in the world with, and you knew that he would thank you with a groan and really appreciate the humor in a terrible pun, because it was that kind of friend. His adventure extended to Torah learning. Rabbi Volavik mentioned how he would learn his shiurim, his chitas, his Rambam, Mavesedra every single day without fail. Missing a day he'd catch up. But it extended far beyond. He was, in a way, an adventurer in Torah learning. If you wanted to learn a new Masechta, a new tractate of Talmud, he'd be game. You want to explore a particular, tract of Hasidic discourses that many people had not explored before, he'd be glad to learn it with you. Every area of Torah, he was glad to explore it. At the same point, as Howard said, and the truth is he began his career, I believe, in Hungary, he was the tutor for, people in their middle age who wanted to learn how to read Hebrew, because he had the patience and he had that love of his fellow human being, which allowed him to just do that with patience and love for everybody and all of his students. As we've seen over the past year, Yudi saw Hashem's hand in everything that ever happened to him, but it didn't at all begin then. One of my favorite anecdotes, I remember when he told it to me, was how at one point he happened to land in the hospital over Shabbos, which was difficult for a man with young children and a family to be away for Shabbos. And I was beginning to hear a really difficult, unhappy story. But then it got worse. The guy next to him, in the bed next to him, as he was recovering with a tremendous amount of pain, was handcuffed to the bed. He had been shot, and there they were, confined to a room together. So it was him and this criminal who was handcuffed to the bed. Not a recipe for a pleasant Shabbos. But Yudi took it in stride and said, if Hashem put me in the position to be with this person, I have a mission. And so he had spent that entire Shabbos speaking to this person, inspiring this person about how he could improve his life, how he could change his life, and he can turn things around. By the time Shabbos ended and Yudi was ready to be discharged, this person had gotten the message. And he said, now I know why I was shot and arrested. I was shot so that I could spend Shabbos with you, or spend this time with you, and get this message. Because Yudi lived that way, as a messenger of Hashem. Wherever he went, everything that happened was all from Hashem. A fender bender, every little thing, he saw it as a gift from Hashem and as an opportunity from Hashem. And just like he saw that every event, however short, was a gift from Hashem, I will say that Yudi's life, however short it was a gift from Hashem, something that each of us cherished, cherish, and will continue to cherish. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Wow. Everybody has so much to share, so many memories and so many stories. If you go to sharetoremember.com/rabbi-yudi-dukes and you put your stories over there, it will be so meaningful for the family, and we'll also be able to move the program along. The last person to speak to Yudi, who was a beloved Shabbos guest all the way back from Charlotte and has his own story with the Dukes family, which is becoming the theme of this section, I'd like to call upon Mr. Ari Lipschitz to share some short memories.
It was the honor of a lifetime to know Yudi. Here was someone of stunning intellect and endless heart. Nearly the moment that I arrived in New York from Charlotte when I was 18, 10 years ago, Sarah and Yudi invited me for Shabbos in Crown Heights, and they would continue to do so again and again as they moved to Long Island, as their kids got older, as I got older. And always there was Sarah, and always there was Yudi. He's had this magnificent singing voice, shining eyes that crinkled when he laughed, which he did often, a way of pointing out halachic nuances, a fondness for good whiskey and bad puns, and a love for his family. Yudi was someone who thrilled at delving into complexity and nuance with gravity and empathy. He delighted weighing viewpoints on the one hand, on the other hand, back to the first hand. Every conversation with him was suffused with this deep desire to teach and learn Torah. An example is I saw Yudi in the hospital late last year, shortly before his health turned. It was meant to be a short visit, and when I saw him in his bed, I expected to stop by and then let him rest. Of course, then he asked me, Ari, would you like to put on tefillin? And I said, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But I explained to him it had been a long time, and I had forgotten which arm I had used to put it on. Well, he said, which was my dominant arm, he asked. And I said, well, that was actually kind of a complicated question. And with that, his eyes lit up, because I knew that his eyes were shining with electricity. I explained that while I had learned to write with my left hand, at some point it became clear that my right hand was the stronger one. And even a year into one of the most profoundly physically and psychologically damaging journeys, Yudi was just thrilled to dive in. He told me that, funny enough, he was the same way. And then meanwhile, he summarized the halakhic principles that justified the one view that tefillin was based on the opposite of the stronger hand, the principles that favored the opposite of the writing hand, the view of the Alter Rebbe, view of Tzemach Tzedek, on the one hand, on the other hand. He wanted to know how I was raised to do it. And he even went so far as to call Benjamin Weiss, the rabbi who taught me for my bar mitzvah back in Charlotte 15 years ago. He went deeper and deeper. And eventually my father texted me, yes, Ari, it was the right arm. Personal experience, Torah study on the one hand, on the other hand, and that was Yudi, teaching Torah from his hospital bed, and I will miss him deeply. And I'm in awe of his merits and the merit of Sarah and the Dukes family and the Spangenthal family.
Hi, my name is Yehuda Dukes, and I'd like to invite you to explore your Judaism and learn more about the Torah by signing up to JNET.org and match you with a volunteer to study Torah with once a week on the phone for about a half hour or online. So please feel free to sign up, and I look forward to speaking with you. Take care.
Hi, my name is Kai Kohan, and I had a privilege of working with Yudi doing JNET in Spanish. I want to share with you two stories that from those stories we could see how important JNET was for Yudi and how he was taking care of every detail to make this organization the best organization possible. When he already got sick on April, he already was, he didn't feel good at all. He already got the virus. And he WhatsApped me if I can please send out an email to the JNET list and making an announcement of something particular we did, a project. I was extremely amazed about how he was worried, even though that he wasn't feeling well at all, to make sure that this email would come out. One of the times that I visited him, I had an idea of making Yudi involved in JNET again. So I decided to go to the hospital and ask Yudi if he could recommend me any speaker that he could make a class. He couldn't talk yet, but he was able to communicate. He had an iPad with him. He spent at least 25 minutes looking in his iPad for a speaker, for a rabbi to give a class. He was looking and trying to tell me the name, but I wasn't able to understand very well what he had in mind, which speaker he had in mind. But he kept continuing trying to communicate it. Once again, I was extremely surprised and amazed that he put all his effort to make sure that we could have a speaker giving a class. So with those short stories, we could see very clear that Yudi was JNET and JNET was Yudi.
My name is Valvo Farkas, and I had the privilege and honor to work together with Yudi in Americas 302. Many conversations I had with him regarding JNET. He was always looking how to make it better, looking how to make it easier to find chavrusas, looking to make it easier for people to learn, asking me many times if I want to become a chavrusa, even though I wasn't interested, but he never gave up. He kept on every few months asking, no, did you change your mind? You could see that Yudi lived, eat, breathed. JNET was his life. As I recall, every year I would give Yudi a small donation, nothing much, but every year would come back at the same time asking again, can I count on you this year again? Can I count on you this year again? He wouldn't let go. He would make sure that JNET is being funded, that JNET is working, that people are getting what they need. And you could see his devotion. He was a part, his life was JNET, and JNET was his life. And for that, he will always be remembered how beautiful and how devoted he was for the cause, for the Rebbe, with the Shlichus.
Ever since JNET was established as a hachlata of the Knesset Shloshim HaElam, Yudi was hired by its first director and when he moved on shlichus, filled that role. It is my honor and privilege to call upon my dear father, Rabbi Moshe Kotlarsky, who is the vice chairman of Merkaz L'Yonei Chinuch and the chairman of the Kinus HaShlochim, that established JNET with the help of the Rohr Family Foundation to share some insight on how Yudi viewed his shlichus.
Sarah, Rabbi and Leib, Dr. Spagenthal, my friend of over 40 years, children, and friends. Very hard to stand here and talk about Yudi. Shlomo Melech, the wisest of all men, said, Tev Shem Tev Mishem and Tev, V'yem Himovis Miyem Hivoldi. It's better a good name than good oil, and the day of the passing of a person, the day of death, from the day of his birth. We understand the first part. Shem and Tev, good oil, has a price. A good name, you spend your whole life working on getting. But to say that the day of a person's passing is better than the day of a person's birth, the day of a person's birth is connected with a mazel tov, it's connected with joy, with happiness. Person's passing is connected with tears. Magidei Emes, preachers of old, connect this to a story in the Medrash. Explain this with a story. There were once two boats, two ships. One was leaving port and one was coming into port. And people were standing and screaming, hooray, hurrah, and praising the one that was leaving. There was one Chacham Echad that was praising the ship that was coming into port. And they asked him, why do you praise this one when everyone is praising the one that is going out? And he said, you don't understand. The ship that is going out is embarking on high seas. It'll come from port to port to port. Nobody knows if it's going to discharge its cargo and its passengers in a safe way. The one that is coming into port, we know that has already been at all of the ports of call. And in each place he has been successful. And in each place he has accomplished what he had to do. And now he's coming into port, so he's worthy of that praise. What is the cargo? What is the currency with which it is? It goes with, in those days, gold, silver, coins, diamonds, whatever it was. It has a value. Passenger pays a price to travel. The cargo is discharged. Sometimes it is bartered, sometimes it is not. Yudi had one currency, and only one currency. In everything that he did, and each day was another port of call, he had one currency. And the currency that he had was fulfilling a shlichus, living a shlichus, and giving a nachas to the Rebbe. How many times he came into my office with those, what would be seemingly small things of accomplishment, of a shir that took place, a siyum that was taking place. How he lived with the evening of appreciation, the menu, down to the smallest detail. But I received from Yudi, and I have to say this, from nobody else other than Yudi, signed by him and by Sarah and by all of the children. Whether they knew that they signed it or not, I don't know, but he would write me letters. thanking me for this and expressing the schus that he had to be a shliach of the Rebbe. This was his life. His family was his life. But his life and his family was also to instill in them that feeling. His children, Sarah mattered to him more than anything else. How many times I heard it. With that little shalach manos he would bring sometimes a week late, but he always managed to bring it, with such love, with such dedication. And his one care and concern was, I sent Sarah a picture this week. You talk about a Chassidish Yid. In the office, we have a lunch and learn. Once a month they get together, they learn the Sikha. And after the Sikha, Mendel Chaitin was involved in putting together, even this evening, puts together this lunch and learn with dedication, starts bringing out the food. And everybody's helping set up. You see Yudi sitting there, learning. Has another Sikha in front of him. He's sitting there learning. That picture is an icon. That picture is something that his children, I'm sure, will cherish as they grow older, to show a person that he valued every minute. So Sarah, the children, parents, you can't understand why it was so short, why his life was reached Ben Arboim Labina, but why it happened this way. So they told the story that they were sitting, all of the Tzaddikei Elyon was sitting in the room, and this one said, if I would be the Eibishter, I would eliminate hunger. This one said, I would eliminate illiteracy, I would eliminate sickness, I would eliminate death. And then they said, the Alter Rebbe said, if I would be Hashem, I would run the world the way I'm running it. But then I would know the reasons why. Why and how he accomplished so much in such a short life and accomplished his mission and came into the port of call with all of the cargo intact, with everything that he set out to do done in its completion and done with its fulfillment, and the dreams that he had were left as dreams. I'll never understand, and I can't explain it to you. As much as I'll try, I can't explain it to you. But you, who are his family and his friends, and those that were involved in his day-to-day life, but especially his parents, his in-laws, and of course Sarah, who became a bastion of Emunah and Bitachon, which I never imagined, with that prolific writing and sharing that has literally brought Emunah to so many people. And the children that were so zeichet to have such a father, and have such a father, not they had such a father, they have such a father, will be a shining presence in their lives. And his life was a life of Rebbe, Shlichus, Eibishter Rebbe Shlichus, Torah, mitzvahs, helping another Jew, and above all, caring for his family. And this is the lesson that we learn from him. Is Yehi Zichrei Baruch. JNET will continue. It'll be an everlasting thing. It's a pull in Nimsheches of his memory and his life, and it always will be. It'll increase. They didn't ask me before. They set out for 1,800 new chavrusas, and Yudi would have been much more happy if there would have been another zero at the end of it, of 18,000, but we'll get to Be'ezus Hashem also. David is the only one that could give you that comfort. Sorry to you and to the children and Rabbi Dukes and Dr. Selwyn, who I know more than 40 years from when I went the first time to Charlotte. We became friends then. It should give you it should be Bilam Ovis Lanetzach, and in his memory and in the basking in the glory of what he stood for, we should all find a true nechama.
To Yudi, his shlichus was his whole life, and something that I know he made clear he wanted to do even when he was dating. He didn't care what shlichus it will be, but he knew that he was going to do shlichus. And therefore, for Yudi, the students, the volunteers, the supporters of JNET were essential to his mission in life and really like family. The students of JNET really come from all different types of backgrounds and places, from 130 countries, young, old, professionals, artists, retired people, teenagers, all walks of life, people who are seeking, who are searching to delve deeper, more than just an article, more than just a class. A real connection is what Yudi set out to do. 30 minutes of personal Jewish training a week, like a gym, working hard. And therefore, to him, his shlichus, the volunteers and the students were everything, and the supporters made it happen. Just like the students come from all backgrounds, so too the volunteers. You have business people, you have professionals, you have retirees, you have teachers, you have younger light people who just got married who are sitting in kollel that give up from their time and are a part of this JNET shlichus. A lifelong teacher, Rabbi Shalom Tenenbaum, will represent the JNET community by sharing a few thoughts on Rabbi Dukes.
I really am honored to be here and be asked to say a few words, which of course you can't just say a few words. I mean, you heard already previous speakers. I had the zchus to be from the first chavrusas of JNET. And it was many years later that I got to meet Yudi Dukes. And that was when he decided to make the first dedication dinner from the chavrusas that was at the JCM. He arranged that time that my chavrusa, Mr. Leonard, in Peoria, Illinois, he arranged him to be there and to say a few words on behalf of how it is to be so far away and yet to be connected. And of course, I was asked to say a few words at that time, and I spoke to the Olam, although the people that were present were all already members of JNET who had their chavrusas. But then again, I was saying, not so much as convenience, but you do it from your own daladamis. You really don't have to travel, whatever it may be. You can sit at home, set up the time, and you have your chavrusa who you learn with. And that goes a step further. Now, in chavrusa of learning, you become a friend. As a matter of fact, Mr. Leonard himself, when they call him now every Thursday, recent months, he would always ask me, how was Yudi doing? I have him my prayers. I say it to Hillim. And he only met him once. Yudi had a natural chen. When the Mishna says, having Bekabel, as Kolodom, is save upon him Yofes, it was Bepoyel Mamish. You said hello to him. He had a gift, a natural chen, when he looked at you, when he spoke to you. So there I was speaking that time. I just brought out the point that everyone should join, and I see there's a big campaign out to expand it. The following year, we came to the same banquet, honoring different people. And the same at the table, I see this young man going around speaking to the present, the people that were there. And then I was wondering what he was saying. But then he came over to me, and he started telling me that Rabbi Yudi Dukes brought him in because since he sees the chavrusas, for an hour he's trying to find maybe some of them will want to do a second chavrusa during the week. Yudi took it a step further. It can be Yitzhak just for a half hour in the week. If you have time and you can arrange it, you can do a second chavrusa. But then at that banquet, they gave out the booklet with the chavrusas. I really was shocked and impressed. I think it was close to 1,500 chavrusas. I had no idea. When I started off, we were speaking about, 10, 20, 100. But Yudi, so by saying this Shloshim, not only bring it up, I don't know where it's holding now, but I know at that time the book was up close to 1,500 chavrusas, and that was a campaign for another 1,800, But also he started that if you have time, for a half hour, maybe some people have time twice a week. You can reach out to more people. And let's hope in Mitzvah Shem, there's nothing like it. Yudi Mamish brought a chayis into this chavrusa thing, and Baruch Hashem continuing it, Lil Neshmosai, and we should only hear Psudas Tevas.
Yeah, JNET really is for everybody. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but when Yudi had a hard time breathing and he was losing a lot of energy before he left to the hospital, he was sitting by the computer and was forcing himself to finish and complete the JNET newsletter that he saw as the connection point between the students and the teachers and the donors that supported the chavrusas. That was his whole life. And his wife told him, Yudi, you gotta rest, you gotta relax, and you gotta save your energy. And he said, no, I need to make sure it goes out before Shabbos. And the last thing he said before he was taken on the ambulance is, make sure that the newsletter gets done. And Sarah called the office, and one of his dedicated friends made sure that that newsletter went out. JNET was his whole life. At this point, talking about learning, I'm going to call upon the Dukes boys to come up and to make a siyum on the Mishnayos that they learned. And we will launch the campaign in honor of Yudi.
I learned Perek Aleph, I learned Perek Avos, Perek Aleph, and the last Mishna says the world stands on three things: judgment, truth, and peace. I learned in Pirkei Avos, Perek Beis, the last Mishnah. Rabbi Tarfon used to say, you're not forced to finish all the work, but you also cannot just leave it. If you learn a lot of Torah, then you will get a lot of reward from Hashem, who we trust to pray the reward for your work. And we should know that the tzaddikim get the reward in Olam Haba.
I learned Perek Gimel and Daled in Perek Avos, and in either Gimel or Daled, there's Sefer Panim Yafas, so always greet someone with a smile, and yeah.
I like to complete Mesech Avos with the last Mishna of Perek Vav. Kol ma shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'olamei lo v'roi ela l'chvaydei. All that Hashem created in this world was created for His honor. Shneimar, as it says, Kol hanikra v'shmi v'lichvaydei b'rasiv yitzartiv af asisin. All that is called by my name is for my honor. I have created it, I have formed it, and made it. V'omer, and as it says, Hashem yimech olam v'od, Hashem will rule forever and ever. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shmei Rabba V'almad v'rach Rusei v'yakol Rusei v'yatzmach v'kar v'shichei V'chayecha v'yimecha v'chai v'chol Beis Yisrael B'agal v'zmakar v'imramein Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach L'yolom Olmei Maya Yisparech v'yishtabach v'yispar v'yisreimam v'yisnasei V'yisadar v'yisalo v'yisalo shmei L'kutshe b'richo Le'evam v'kabel chaso v'shirasa Teshb'chaso v'nachem asa D'amir b'alma v'imramein Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidein v'al Kol Tamidei Samidein v'al Kol Mandas K'bereisa D'v'yasra D'midi v'chol asar v'asar Yehi lo'en ulchan Shomar Rabba Chinu v'chista v'rachamin v'chayin arichinu m'zen r'vicho v'rkonu mikadam avoyin d'vishmaya v'imra amen Yehi shlom Rabba min Shemaya v'chayin tovim aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael v'imra amen Oyiseh shalom b'imrei mof v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael v'imra amen.
Hi, my name is Baruch Dukes. As you all know, my father was the director of JNET for 15 years. My father put all his time and effort into setting up chavrusas and finding people to learn with each other. Every time he set up a new chavrusa, it got him so happy. Like, whenever he would drive us home every day, he would do like his work calls, and like he would always get happy whenever he would set up a chavrusa. Tonight, JNET is launching a campaign to continue my father's work. The campaign is called Chavrusa for Yudi. All you have to do is go to chavrusaforyudi.com and take on a new chavrusa. We're only talking about 30 minutes once a week. You can do it.
Take out your phone and look for chavrusaforyudi.com. But I mean the number 4. Okay, thank you.
I hope to inspire all of you to take an opportunity to increase in your Torah learning, to learn Torah. That's our oxygen. And I wish you all the best. And I thank you for all the prayers and all the tehillim and all the mitzvot that you have done for me.
This will surely keep my father's legacy alive. Thank you and have a good night.
everyone who has a chavutza already.
While there are many initiatives and campaigns, hachlotas, that are being taken on in memory of Yudi by different individuals and different people, his friends and family felt that the most befitting way to honor and remember his legacy would be to continue to grow and to inspire everyone to do what he would want you to do. To learn a little bit more Torah, not only by yourself, but with a chavrusa, inspiring somebody else to learn along with you. And it is in that vein that we made it simple, clear, easy, and a campaign was launched to identify 1,800 new chavrusas, that's 3,600 new people, and then continue to double that number on and on and on. Please think about somebody, a friend, a neighbor, a family member, a coworker, whether you need someone to study with you or whether you can study with them. Reach out to them. Set aside a half hour a week. Go to Chevrusa, the number 4, Yudi.com, and let JNET know. Together with JLI, there are some resources being put together in order to enable Chavrusa learning to be easier and meaningful. And submit your Chavrusa. So like that, the family will know JNET can continue to service and support you, and Yudi's legacy will grow by leaps and bounds, and millions of minutes of Torah will be learned in memory of Yudi. We come now to the next section, which is one that we all became all too familiar with over the last several months. We've come across many angels over this period of time. Yudi's time in the hospital, coming at a time when no one should ever know what it's like to get sick ever, let alone by an overwhelmed system that had policies in place created by other people which made it excruciating on the patient, the family, and friends, obviously feeling for the well-being and the medical benefits for the patients of the hospital, trying to care for them. But in this space, there were many, many angels that became part of the family, nurses that made it their duty, their mission to go and care for Yudi and for others on their own time, in their own way. Daba, Bruria, Rafi, to name a few. Yes, they deserve not only a round of applause, but a tremendous debt of gratitude for everything that they did. From being there when Yudi was in a coma and playing voice notes of his friends and family, to making sure that the dollar of the Rebbe was delivered and Yudi was able to hold that in his hand in his coma for days on end. Nobody can explain how or why. To putting on tefillin with him when no one else was allowed into the hospital, and countless other selfless acts. To the entire medical staff at NYU, at Cornell, to the doctors, to the nurses, to the liaisons, to the volunteers, to Rabbi Shali Freundlich, to the Shloshim who would visit him day in, day out, to his friends. Like I mentioned, we can't mention everybody by name. To Dr. Riviera, who is not here, but really was the first glimmer of hope when he walked into that room. And to everybody who you'll hear from in this section, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Andrew Liebman is someone who became a close friend with Yudi while he was in the hospital and was inspired to document his life. As the entry point to this section, I'd like to call upon Mr. Andrew Liebman.
Shalom lekulam. My name is Andrew, and I'm very honored that tonight I am going to share a project with you all that I've been working on over the last year with Yudi. So this project came about because I'm very close friends with Yudi's sister, Rachel Dukes. And although I had never met Yudi prior to him getting sick, I had been keeping up with the story on social media. And so when I saw that he woke up from his coma and this miraculous miracle was taking place in the same city that I was in, soon after that, Rachel had asked me to deliver an iPad to Yudi so that he would be able to use it in his recovery, and it would aid him in regaining his skills. And so I delivered the iPad, and when I delivered it, I realized that I might be the only filmmaker that has access to tell this story and to be able to speak with Yudi and share his message and his inspiration and energy to the world. So I interviewed him for many hours in the hospital and put together this short film that you'll be seeing now. Thank you.
After 4 months of not talking, believe me, I haven't stopped talking since.
He's one of the people that got far more critically ill than most people would get from this infection. We don't really understand why that happens. We don't understand why some people react so poorly to different viruses than others. We wind up giving him basically everything we could think of that might potentially work. He got a lot of medications that were what we would consider investigational, where we weren't sure if it helped or not, but there was some reason to believe it could help.
The top doctor here in the hospital, Dr. Ron Goldenberg, he told my wife, he said he's never seen anyone go through what I went through and survive. It's not one of these little miracles. It's an open miracle. And it's amazing that there's so many people who are part of it. I was on this machine for 17 weeks. It broke every world record. The doctors tried treating me, and they were trying thing after thing, and nothing was working. My wife, her faith was so strong. And she fought and fought with the hospital and said, let me be part of the process. Let me come and visit him. So they made an exception, and when she came in, I woke up. The physical task on my body is incredible. I try really hard, and sometimes I can't do things. In the beginning, I felt guilty. There were days that I didn't put on tefillin because there was no way that I had any strength to do it. There was an angel named Rabbi who would come and put them on me. But a lot of days I couldn't do it.
Good job, Yud.
My most special wife, she reached out to the world and she started a campaign saying, my husband can't put on tefillin. Please put on tefillin in his merit. And then I came to the realization that God doesn't want me to put on tefillin. My not putting on tefillin is making hundreds of people around the world put on tefillin. And that's worth more to him than just me doing it. And I was comforted by that fact. There are 12,000 people that have gone through my organization in studying Torah. And I get to be able to see the effects of it. But when someone studies Torah, specifically one-on-one, it really changes a person. If we don't have Torah in our lives, then it's like we're not breathing. And COVID attacks your lungs. It takes away your breath. But everyone needs to breathe. And so it doesn't matter where you're holding in observance of the mitzvahs. Every time you learn Torah, it's breathing for your soul.
Well, accurately, today is day number 158 that I'm in the hospital. It's almost been 3 weeks now that I haven't been in critical condition, which means I don't have any chest tubes connected to my lungs. I don't have a trach, which is why you can see that I'm actually holding my neck, because there's a hole there, and if I don't hold it, air actually escapes when I talk. I did lose about 40 pounds. You can imagine laying in a bed for 5 months wouldn't really be a way of muscle building. One of the ways to connect to God for all of mankind is to be charitable. One of the things Sarah did was she had this tzedakah box decorated by the kids. When I was still in a coma, she would ask the doctors and nurses to take a coin and put it in the charity box. And in Hasidic philosophy, we understand that every single time that someone does a mitzvah, they're connecting not only conceptually to God, but they're also connecting their physical hand and that moment in time to God as well. And this is a commandment which applies equally to Jews and non-Jews, to be charitable. The word tzedakah doesn't mean charity. It means just. The reason that God gives us money is to do good things with it. And really, sometimes some of the money that we have is meant to go to someone else. And when we give tzedakah, we're just being a courier for God to give that person what they need. The janitor knows before he sweeps the floor, he comes right in, goes straight to the bowl of coins and puts one in the box.
Which one are you gonna circle?
There's so much that I learned just by sitting and thinking about what's important in life in silence for, I was probably awake for at least a full month before I was able to talk. Nothing happens to you. It happens for you. When I'm in pain or when they're doing some procedure, which is, difficult or painful, I tell myself that I'm actually experiencing this for my own benefit. There's something which I'm getting from this, which for some reason This is not a great way to get it, but it's really making me a better person, either character-wise or is helping someone else somehow. That line has gotten me through, any negativity or any negative experiences. God doesn't do things to hurt you. He does them for you.
You ready to get out of here? There we go.
I've gained an appreciation for discovering every new thing. Just eating in general, talking, using my feet, every little detail.
Great.
When we say the morning blessings every morning, and we say things like, "Blessed are you, God, King of the world, who straightens the bent," and it refers to being able to stand up, and I still can't stand up. There's a much deeper appreciation for each and every, detail of what we're able to do. Most of these things we learn when we're kids and not conscious of the discovery part of it. It's a beautiful way of discovering life again and knowing that every single detail, it all comes from God. After 5 months, the first thing I had was a piece of chocolate, which was a joy that I had never experienced in my life. In Hasidic philosophy, it says that simcha poretz geder, happiness or joy can break through any boundaries. That was what I experienced. My mind opened up in a way that I never experienced before.
L'chaim Yudi.
Hello, this is Yudi Dukes talking to you, God willing, for the last time from room 1525 in NYU Langone Hospital. God willing, this afternoon I will be moving to Rusk Rehabilitation and continuing to the next phase in my recovery. It's a really big deal and I'm very excited about it. One step closer to home. When you are grateful for what you have, it changes your whole mindset. There's a joy in life. And for me, just having a moment where I'm not in pain, I can appreciate that because there's just been so much of that. If nothing else, I can always appreciate a moment that I don't have pain, that I'm able to breathe each breath, and just that feeling of gratitude to be alive is something which we all can really appreciate. And I think my role is to just be an example of someone who's been through everything and can still be appreciative for those moments. And people can look at me and say, I didn't have to go through that. I can appreciate just being alive right now.
When you're crowd surfing, you don't have to support yourself because everybody under you is just holding you up. And I feel like anyone who participated in, saying even one prayer for me or one chapter of Psalms or doing one good deed is something that gives me energy. It's a spiritual energy. But that spiritual energy is attention from God, which translates into physical energy as well.
Wow. Yudi, every minute and every opportunity that he had, that he was able to inspire others and be grateful for what he had, meant the world to him. It's amazing. During this video, someone walked up to me and told me he already reached out to someone he knows who doesn't have the ability to learn on his own, and showed me on WhatsApp how he just set up a chavrusa 30 minutes a week. Nothing would make Yudi happier than that. Setting up time to learn, supporting JNET to be able to set up more chavrusas. And in the course of Yudi's stay at the hospital, an anonymous donor, I got a call from one of the seifers in Crown Heights who told me that someone who was inspired by this story dedicated a pair of tefillin. He didn't know for who and for what, but he wanted it to be used. He knew that Yudi couldn't put on tefillin. And b'hashgacha pratis, Yudi became alert, and we decided to give Yudi this tefillin, and Yudi used this in the hospital multiple times on anybody who came into his room after putting the tzedakah and the pushka to do the mitzvah of tefillin, like we just heard from Andrew and from Ari and from so many others. And Sarah and the family decided that the most appropriate place for this pair of tefillin to be used would be with the people, with the angels that enabled Yudi to put on tefillin all of those days when nobody else other than the hospital staff were allowed to be in the hospital. So really it is my honor and privilege to call up Rafi Kortz, who is the liaison, the Jewish liaison at NYU, on behalf of Dubba and Bruria and all of the staff and anybody who had the mitzvah of putting on tefillin with Yudi, to accept this pair of tefillin and to find a home for it in the hospital that Yudi called his Beis Chabad, his Chabad house, and find as many people as you could to put on tefillin with. Rafi? Hey, Rafi, you gotta give tzedakah. You know that. Rafi's the real shliach to NYU.
I didn't prepare for this, and I said I'm not going to speak, but I can't keep back. There's a lot to say, and I will never finish. But I got to say that everyone who came across Yudi in the hospital had this feeling that we all had, and we couldn't resist helping him. It wasn't like we were so good and we were so great that we helped him. We couldn't resist. From the doctors, from the nurses, me myself. Yudi had this way of taking every detail, every piece of pain, every bit of pain, anything that happened to him, to turn it to goodness and find the good in it. And I remember it one day he explained to me about every detail, what he's going through that day and the other day, and the therapist did come and the doctor did understand or not, and he turned everything into goodness and what he found, every detail that is for his better. And I asked him, Yudi, why do you keep on talking? Stop talking, it's not easy for you. Why are you exerting yourself and speaking when you're short of breath? So he says, I have so much joy in myself, I want to share it with the other person. I want everybody to know about it. And that's why he kept on talking. So not only he saw the good in everything, he made sure that as if I won $1 million on the lottery, I want to share it with my family. That's what's every day and every detail about Yudi. And that's why nobody was able to leave his room. Everybody was sitting in his room and listening to him And everybody was inspired. Just the other day, a doctor in the ICU calls me and he says, "How's Yudi's family?" And he started crying. Everybody knows the name of the doctor. I'm not going to mention it. And I tapped his back and I said, "Doctor, what's going on? What happened?" So he was quiet for literally a few minutes in the ICU, and he says, "Yudi literally changed my life." That doctor went through a rough few months with his own family, and he says, if not for Yudi's inspiration, I wouldn't be able to go through what I went through. We all know there's much more to talk about Yudi, but I'll leave it up to the next speaker.
And with that, I would like to call on one of Yudi's therapists, Mr. Mohammed, as he is known, to please come and share some of his memories.
Thank you to the family of Yudi. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled. I don't know what to say. So many great speakers that covered a lot. I want to say Yudi changed my life. He made me become a better person. Made me appreciate my family more. Made me appreciate being alive. Every day I saw him, even though he was going through so much, he always had a smile on his face. He always gave me hope. I'm still surprised he's gone, you know. I thought he was gonna pull through. So when I saw him at Rusk, he looked good. I told him, you know, Yudi, you're doing such a great job. And then when I got the phone call that he passed away, I still couldn't believe it. To Yudi's kids, he left you a legacy. I remember when my father passed away, I was only 8 years old, but as a grown man, I remember everything. So he'll always be with you. You know, me being born Muslim and having a name like Muhammad, Yudi always was welcoming to me and sharing Judaism and teaching me things and helping me appreciate things that I didn't have any knowledge about. Every day I came in the room and Yudi would have different rabbis on. He was, "Muhammad, hey Mo, hey man, I got these rabbis from all across the world." And Yudi was never fake, you know. He would always say Muhammad. He would always say it loud. And he would let everyone know that I was his friend. I appreciate him for that. He made you feel comfortable to be yourself. Yudi made me also realize that you don't have to be fake. You could always be yourself. And if someone doesn't appreciate you, or love you, or like you, then, you know, it is what it is. I remember every day I would come in and Yudi would say, "Muhammad, sadaqah, sadaqah, sadaqah." And I'm like, "Yudi, I have on scrubs. I have credit card. I don't have anything on me." He's like, "Muhammad, you can, right here, and you could put it in." And then when I went to the hospital, and then when Yudi had passed, for the first time, I had $1 in my pocket. And I said to myself, Yudi would be very proud of me. You know, I'm not going to speak that much longer, but I'm going to share something that I just wrote. Is what Yudi taught me. What Yudi taught me, no matter what, how hard things get, keep pushing. Yudi taught me to smile, even in your darkest hour. Yudi taught me when things get tough, you have to be tougher. Yudi taught me to never complain, even when there is things to complain about. Yudi taught me to give without thinking of something in return. And most importantly, Yudi taught me to be an inspiration to others. To Yudi's family, to everyone who loved Yudi and who cared for Yudi, Yudi's friends. I know he touched so many people. Just look at this, and you know, even in passing, he had the ability to do this. Yudi, I love you. Thank you. I know just to hear him say Mo again, you know. But shalom to everybody. He taught me Baruch Hashem and Besras Hashem. Thank you, everybody.
I'm gonna get through this because I'm a fighter. He turned to me and he said, Yudi, you're not a fighter, you're a winner. A winner makes it that even the adversary is part of his win. That's the whole idea of Shalom Nafshi. That's how I feel, is that anything negative that happened to me is actually part of my winning.
When I look at you, I'm inspired by how you've pulled through and how hard you've tried to get through the challenges, face fears and be more positive and do the right things to do. I am so proud of you. Surround yourself with the dreamers, those who help yours come true. To surround yourself with kind people who support all your pursuits. Surround yourself with the humble, respectful, and stand by truth. Those committed and driven and have gratitude and change the world by being you. Surround yourself with the dreamers, those who help yours come true. To surround yourself with kind people who support all your pursuits. Even when we're not together, I will never leave you ever. I'll give you strength to pull through. I love you. Always stay a dreamer and make all your dreams come true. Always stay kind to people and support all their pursuits. Stay strong and stay humble, respectful, and stand by truth. Stay committed and driven and have gratitude. Always stay a believer and believe you'll change the world by being you.
Throughout this ordeal, there were a team of friends that would constantly make every effort to be there with Yudi. And in hindsight, if we only did it and only were as strong as he was and there for him like he was there for everyone along the way, it was next level. But Mr. Itzik Tiffenbrun, who's the husband of Daba, Yudi's angel and nurse, was also invested in this tremendously, constantly organizing the different WhatsApp groups and getting Yudi visitors and being a strong force. And I'd like to ask Itzik to please come and share a few words of inspiration.
Good thing there's a light in my eyes. It's hard to speak after watching that video. It's a good thing I actually wrote a speech, because I'll read from the paper instead of just talking. Dear friends and family, we are here to commemorate the passing of our dear brother and friend, Harav Chaim Shner Zalman Yehuda ben Yebadel Chaim Tevim Rabbi Aaron Leib, or as I like to think of it, celebrating Yudi's life in this world. I'm not a speaker, and for those of you who know me, when I do start talking, 5 minutes is definitely not enough time, and when talking about Yudi, neither would 5 hours be sufficient. There's so many things that I didn't actually put down on paper. So many things. But I'm not going to be able to cover everything, and everybody who's spoken so far covered so many beautiful things. Yudi, 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 Yudi. That's how I used to. When things went south or when things were hectic, the kids knew when I said Yudi, 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 that's what was going on. My new friend, who it seems I knew for a lifetime. Where do I start? As I sat down on the train Tuesday evening with a 0% battery and a missing charging cable, just me and my thoughts, I found an invoice and a pen in my bag, and I turned my thoughts to Yudi. I prayed my ADHD would write words and not decide to sketch out a new piece of jewelry. And that's where I will start. Sarah. It was the month of Av, and Sarah's birthday was coming up. We would have to work quick. Yudi, the NYU ICU romantic, who could not communicate verbally at that time, wanted to gift Sarah with something she had always wanted. So he said. A pendant with their wedding monogram in white gold. Remember, this man was just waking up from a 3-month sleep. And this is what was on his mind. Making something beautiful for his incredible superwoman. He spoke about you so beautifully. His queen. But gifting it was not enough. No, Yudi wanted to surprise Sarah with a treasure hunt, with handwritten clues and an engraving on the back of the pendant. All these details were equally important. His thoughtfulness and his desire to make it as personal as possible. He was invested 1,000,000,000%. One treasure hunt clue of 5 to 7 words took Yudi more than 25 minutes to write. I still get a cramp thinking about holding that pad of paper. But he was determined to write it for Sarah. We joked after he wrote each clue that OT got nothing on him. For those of you wondering, OT, to be clear, is occupational therapy, not Oitera. One clue, just one line, something like, look by the sink and you'll find your drink, written painstakingly over 25 minutes, was about Sarah finding a can of hard seltzer that she had recently taken a liking to. Thank you, Buria. And that Yudi was determined to add to the treasures she was finding. Every detail was so thoughtfully carried out. You could see Yudi's thoughtfulness in his interactions with the people around him in the hospital. He acknowledged every hospital employee who came into his room, whatever their position, sometimes practicing his Spanish with a room cleaner, always with great warmth and appreciation. Everyone learned a lesson of kindness from Yudi. Yudi made everyone who entered the room put a coin into tzedakah, as everyone's mentioned, that was beside his bed. Finally, I want to share the following. Just days after Yudi was first able to speak with a speaking valve, he got a phone call. He got a lot of phone calls. I saw the call come up on the screen with the word collection. But when I handed Yudi the phone, because he was so adamant about taking this call, even though I whispered the word collection had come up on the screen, and that he shouldn't be worrying about these things, took it. When he took the phone and he said the word yes, accepting the call, it dawned on me that the word I had read as collection was actually correction. And the caller was an inmate calling from prison, wanting to set up a learning chavrusa. In those short few minutes, just thinking about it, Yudi just got a speaking bell. Yudi handled this JNET call, basically doing an intake, remembering the inmate, and remembering setting him up in the past with chavrusa, and guiding him how to set up, get him set up with a new chavrusa. He shared with the caller that he was in ICU and asked the guy to take on a good deed and to say Tehillim for him. Yudi believed firmly that this was part of his shlichus, to get others, while he was in the hospital, to say some Tehillim and to take on good resolutions. Yudi's passion and his devotion for his shlichus, ensuring that every Jew would have the opportunity to learn Torah, was something he never let go of, even when he knew that 3 other people were filling in for him. He remained completely devoted to his shlichus. This is not on the paper, but I'm going to say it. I don't know how to talk for only 5 minutes. One of the things that I specifically recall that was something that I was able to always start off with Yudi was, did he hear from the kids? There was nothing that brought more joy to Yudi than speaking to his children. Yudi fought so hard for those kids. It was just something incredible. I guess I'll get personal here. I remember thinking to myself, imagine my father fought so hard to stay alive for me. And that was a thought, I think, that really inspired me to try and just be an amazing parent for my children. I think the amount of love and devotion that Yudi, and he fought so hard just to be that father, and it's just something that I'll probably never be able to live up to, but maybe a little bit. All right. And so I'd say to Yudi when I was leaving the hospital, my dearest brother Yudi, I will love you forever, and I will miss you till I see you soon. And I'd kiss him on his forehead and come back 20 minutes later and say, I see you now. May we be blessed to just reunite with Yudi, and may the family find comfort and healing and carry on in his beautiful legacy. Thank you.
From all the medical staff and doctors that helped out along the way, Yudi's personal doctor, Dr. Hillel Usseroff, who braved the snow to be here tonight, but braved many other journeys along the way in trying to help you to get better. We'd like to ask Dr. Usseroff to please come and share.
It's overwhelming evening. See Dr. Selwyn, meeting you for the first time. I'm sure the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You have a daughter and grandchildren that are such heroes. So I remember one visit with Yudi that is still vivid in my mind. It was early on in his hospitalization, and I was rounding in the hospital, and as I was turning the corner on the ward, it was a bit of a war zone, understaffed, loads of patients, and it wasn't the first time I had gone to visit Yudi. And as I was passing his room, I heard him calling out. So I turned to the nurse and I asked, "Is everything okay?" And she pointed to the monitor on the unit and said, "Yeah, he's okay." So I entered the room, and Yudi is lying on his stomach, the way he was instructed to, in order to improve his breathing. And and he had his talis cut done on. He was schwitzing a bit and struggling to breathe. And he was repeating something that I couldn't really understand the first couple of times he said it, until it struck me he was saying my yarmulke, my yarmulke. And on the floor was his yarmulke. So I quickly went, picked it up, and put it on his head, and he was profusely thanking, and I said, similar to, Rafi, I said, don't speak so much, like, save your energy. But he couldn't contain himself, and I think that embodies Yudi in a very small way, but his frumkeit, his determination in being medactic in mitzvos that he felt were essential, and his unwavering, uncompromising expression of gratitude. I did write down a couple of ideas that I wanted to share. I'm going to try to be brief. What I've taken away from much of this experience, specifically with Yudi, but generally what we have gone through as a community, as a society, over the past almost 1 year, is that this experience, and specific to Yudi, there's no question that he's made us all better people, more caring, more sensitive, and hopefully more spiritual. Being in Yudi's presence was always a privilege. He was an inspirational figure. And there's no question that when he was taken from us, he left a gaping hole. And he had the ability to speak in an encouraging way, especially, it was so paradoxical. He's on the receiving end, but yet you walk away feeling that he was on the giving end. He was insightful, he was encouraging, he was wise, and he was witty. Most of all, though, I think he was really humble. He always made room for other people. His smile was so genuine. I remember when, on his second admission, when he was admitted to Cornell, and I came as a more of a friend and an advocate than a physician. But when I got to the emergency room, he and Sarah were in their room, and I was told I wasn't allowed to enter the room. They had strict policies. And so I saw from a distance. He saw me from a distance. We caught each other's eye, and he gave me this smile. It was just he lit up the room. He lights up the room. I have a lot more that I wrote that I was going to say, but I think I'm going to share it privately with the family, and I think that it's an amazing thing that everybody came out tonight. It's a true merit to Yudi and to the family. I'll share one idea and then we'll close. Chazal tell us that hope is achieved when arrogance is abandoned, when gaiva is abandoned. And the root of gaiva, the root of arrogance, comes from the need for a person to feel that they're perfect, and everything has to be done now, and there's no ability to see beyond today. Yudi and Sarah personified this midah of hope and trust, bitachon in Hashem. And their trust in the innate goodness of people. I can't tell you how many times, rightly so, Sarah was at her wit's end with dealing with hospital administrators, hospital policies, completely counterproductive regulations, and despair is not in the Duke's DNA, just not. And I think the reason why is because they personify this midah of humility, and they personify this midah of hope in the way that they care, not just about what's going on with them, but they care to such a great degree of what's going on with things that are well beyond them. And it's a tremendous, there's no exaggeration. I mean, I can't possibly paint the picture that would adequately describe the challenges But I will say that the children, Mendy, Baruch, where is Baruch? Can't see anything with this light. Mazel tov, Baruch, if you're in the room. Yisrael, Shalom, Shena, Moshe. You have a tremendous legacy. Your father's left you a tremendous legacy. It's a living legacy. We should only have simchas.
In between doctors, I just want to take a moment and ask everybody to pause and say a special tefillah for a member of the JNET family, Chavrusa, a teacher for close to 15 years, whose daughter was born and needs a refuah shlema. Ita Henya Bas Chaya Mushka should have a complete refuah shlema, and everybody who's watching and everybody who's here to say it, keep her in mind in your tefillahs. Nothing would make Yudi happier, and no place better than between the two doctors to bring a refuah. And with that, I'd like to call upon Dr. Lehrer from Cornell Hospital, who was really there throughout our Yudi's stay there at times when he was extremely needed. Dr. Lehrer.
Before I begin, I got to make up something that I've been missing for this whole time, because Yudi never asked me to put a penny in the snuggler box. And because of that, I figured, because why should I think that everybody else wouldn't think of this? So I was wondering where the kids are, because I'm going to ask you guys to be a shliach, and I'm going to do something that I learned from my father-in-law. So I know Baruch, I know Mendy, and your name is Shalom. So you're going to be my shliach, Shalom? Alrighty. I believe there's $6 to 6 kids. I folded in a triangle so that you know that it's for tzedakah, but you get to give it to somebody to put into tzedakah. So you might as well give it to each one of your siblings. And if you don't remember, you always have another $1 somebody can give you. I'm not makbid on these. Alrighty, where are we up to? Okay. Excellent. That's for tzedakah, but you know that because you're a Dukes. Oh. All right. All right, so I am probably the least qualified doctor to be talking up over here, because I wasn't one of the doctors who kept him alive in NYU or saved his life in NYU, and I wasn't the primary team on the floor, and I wasn't the primary team in the ICU. I would just come in because Rabbi Freundlich called me up and he said, you know, my friend's in the hospital, and it would be nice if you could just check in on him. And then he knows how nervous I was about calling Sarah. Because I'm always nervous about getting involved in somebody else's family, because it's very personal and it eats away. So anyway, I felt like I was the least qualified person, but you don't say no to Mrs. Dukes. And so when she said it in a very nice way, if you would like to come, if you can come, would you like to speak? But don't feel like you have to. And I kind of felt that she wanted me to speak, so I said, I'll try to say a few words. Anyway, Hashkacha has it. I figured she had mentioned to me that she would like some memories from what the different house staff and different people who took care of Yudi in the hospital. And I was on my shift last night, and I walked into the ICU, walked over to Dr. Ben Gordon, And I asked him, do you remember Rabbi Dukes? He says, remember Rabbi Dukes? I admitted him. I took care of him for 2 weeks. I said, great, what do you remember? And the first thing that he remembered, like everybody remembers, is the tzedakah box. That was the first thing out of his mouth, was having to take that, put the money in the tzedakah box. And now I have permission to say these stories. Yeah. I don't really understand this, but he said that Yudi was planning on remarrying you with his new name because of all the rotten luck he was having with his old one. That's an exact quote. Okay. We've heard so much. There's nothing else that I can really add from what we've been saying, because he was the most upbeat person. He was the most hopeful person. Even when it was like he couldn't talk and he couldn't really move, and everything seemed like it was over. The house staff wouldn't let him. They couldn't let him. They said, how could we be the ones who he dies on our watch? And so they made sure to fight. And I had one resident who came over to me who said, I can't let him, after what happened that first night, that major night, where one of the ICU doctors, the ICU attending, Dr. Rajwani, I heard some of the stories. Maybe another time I can say them. But it was, they made sure he pulled it out, and I guess when I heard that story of the kitten, it makes sense now, because he had more than 9 lives. So, anyway, another piece of hashgacha that just happened last night was I just happened to stumble across this quote. It was a quote by a 19-year-old who unfortunately didn't make it from colorectal cancer. His name was Stephen Sutton, and he was an Englishman. And he said, life isn't measured in time, it's measured in achievements. And we just had a whole understanding of that, and it's going to go on and on and on, because it just, it's like a seed that gets planted. I do want to say that there was one time that I was able to sense how much love he had for you. And it was one night that I came in, and it was the way he said, honey. I just don't know how, I'm not even going to attempt to repeat it. I just heard it, and it was something that was so meaningful, and it was so touching, and it just resonated how much you meant to him. And then I can understand why you fought so much for him and stood up for him. And the last thing that I remembered was he always had to say Kriya Shema at night. And during one of those Kriya Shemas that we were at night, I decided to, on a whim, say, why don't we say a kapitel of Tehillim? And I asked him which kapitel, and he indicated to me, because he actually was very, very weak at that point, and he said, kapitel Mem. He wanted the 40th kapitel. And you explained to me exactly why he was wanting to say that kapitel. So what we've all realized is that Rabbi Dukes is the most unique person in this world. We've had so many, unfortunately, throughout COVID. We had the first wave, we have a second wave, we have a third wave, and he managed to ride all of them. So, yeah, I had thought that, I have a list actually at home of all the people that I knew who we lost to COVID. And it seems to indicate that God is acting with a lot of laser pinpoint focus and pinpoint selection on who he's taking, because he's only taking the best of the best. And when I say that he's unique and he accomplished all of them, we can't understand that. I do have to thank my brother, because he always told me, whenever you find a special person, go and just, link up, because you'll gain so much from him. And tonight I realized that. There's a final thought that I wanted to say, because it's so hard to be able to understand what's going on. And not only is it what I want, I feel like it can help, and hopefully, I don't know, I guess it sounds like I'm wrapping up this evening. So I do, there's a, Moshe Rabbeinu is advocating for Klal Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu after the Egel, after the sin of the golden calf. And he has a strange request according to the Medrash. He asks God, can I see your face? And God says, he said, you can't see my face. You can see my back, but you can't see my face. And I heard an explanation of the following. He said, Moshe wanted to know what the future held. He wanted to be able to understand why things were happening before they happened. And God told him, I'm sorry, you can't. There's no way that we can know the future. He said, but maybe someday, somewhere, you'll be able to understand why something happened. It may take 30, 40, 50 years. But I promise you, one day you'll be able to understand why this happened. I realized that, obviously, Yudi didn't come from, Yesh Me'ayin. He came from his parents. And I do have to thank Rabbi Dukes for, it was literally only a couple of hours before Yudi passed away. And you're giving me chizuk about how the doctor comes and Malach Rafal's there telling me the story of the Magid Mimezrich. And it was just mind-boggling. And then you can understand where Yudi comes from. And so I guess what I would like to end with is for the kids. It's appropriate today. It's Parshas Truma about giving, giving's receiving. And in regards to Parshas Zachar, it's all about remembering. And I would like to say that we find by a seed, the seed, everything grows from a seed, but it's buried. You can't see it. And I think what we see from here and everything else that we've seen from here is, number one, he had amazing parents, an awesome wife who's advocating for him, and great kids who, that's his seeds. This is Yudi. And you could only imagine where they're going to take it from here. And I could, I guess as a final thing to say, that we can only wish that Mashiach will be coming, and as we say at the end of every Kaddish, Hashta ba'agala uzman karev. It should happen quickly and speedily. Thank you.
I'm privileged to be Yudi's brother-in-law. And when asked to speak about what Yudi's family means to him, the only way for me to share some of that feeling is with a poem. Always by your side. From the beginning, to create family you craved. Not some type of winning, but a chance to be brave. To share your big heart. To give and help live the dream from the start. Enter your lady, waiting, ready to woo. Dad, not yet a Zaidi. Parnasa, what will he do? Not backing down, nary a flinch. Determination, a crown. This deal I'll cinch. And her heart you won. Yes, she said, it'll be fun. Off to the races. Charlotte, first stop. Hungarian love songs, dance till you drop. The joy was lit, the fire was sparked. On to the shchuna. Where do you park? The growth and the goodness that would spread out from there. Mendy, the first one. Sweetest voice, blondest hair. Much more to come. Stay for a time. There's room, there's food, and even some wine. Shabbos, doors open, family, we're all friends. The apartment on Kingston, the Shekhinah descends. With room to spare, let's make it a pair. Increase the blessing. Leave no one guessing. with the name Baruch Svi, expanding the we. A boy as gentle as a deer, again that hair. With a smile so wide, there's no surprise. Dad's in there too, deep inside, boo. A promise to your queen. With my will, there's a way. Not just for pay, a shlichus, a mission. No expectations, conditions, but to create more pairs of learning and light. A gift for pleasantness, your greatest might.
It's a slow hippopotamus.
With more than kol el pei, there was another on the way. Yisrael, your Izakel. At first quiet, always physical, he needed a brother. Good thing there was another. Using logic and words, hey, have you heard? My brother does magic, and I can play chess. Do we get along? Sometimes, I guess. The apartment was shrinking. A piano? No way. You set your eyes eastward, a backyard to play. But first a girl, adorned in blonde curl. Shayna Lali, her name. Waking in vain? No, it's a privilege for me. Strong cup of coffee, primed and ready. My commitment, ever steady. 5 towns, a house, and rarely a mouse. Brooklyn not far, miles on a car will not get in the way of chinuch each day. An opportunity to learn and grow, in young hearts to sow, a connection to the one for whom it's all done. In the yeshivas of our Rabbi, even when it gets messy, that's part of the story. We're not here for the glory, but to learn and to give, to strive, to live as a lamplighter, a fighter, for good, for God. Why else are we here? Sometimes there's fear. That's the price of caring. Won't stop me from daring. So on an island that's long, you created another song, Moshe the name. Different and the same. Love is here for you, my dear. In my heart, there's always space. Another child to embrace. So with coffee, more bold. Sometimes even cold. You never once shied away from your family, not even today. You're with each soul, in a way that's true, fulfilling your role as only a Tah can do. You've given one and all, the knowledge, the belief, that when they fall, Hashem is right by their side to bring relief. And so are you, always connected, bonds of love and commitment to keep them protected.
They're spinning round and round, and when they're nice and dizzy, they'll fall down on the ground. We want Mashiach now, we don't want to wait. Near villain Mashiach. Yes, I love you.
No, I'm not going to speak again this evening. No. But being Rabbi Mendy, my brother-in-law's matchmaker, Shatchen, and Baruch Hashem, they celebrate the birth of a baby boy just a few days ago. I sent him home to his wife, and I said, I'll fill in for you. So, next speaker is Rabbi Dov Ber Dukes, Yudi's brother, who's going to speak live from Chicago.
On behalf of the extended Dukes family, I'd like to say that it is impossible to capture a complete picture of Yudi and what he means to our family in just a few short words. You've all seen a portion or a glimpse, but I don't believe anyone has experienced all of him. You see, as a brother, son, or grandson, husband or father, cousin, nephew, or uncle, Yudi has his own individual relationship with each and every one of us. Yudi, the extrovert of our family, Yudi, the laugh behind every good and also head-slapping pun. The brother who listened to Nigunim with me at night, the brother who showed me what it means to be a good father and a good husband, the brother who pushed me to do my best and use my skills to the utmost, even if it meant tiring me for the job himself. For the few years that we were both in yeshiva and on the same continent, we had many conversations which almost always included an exchange of some Torah we were studying. You know, I never quite learned how to end a conversation, and I think that's because I never wanted those conversations with Yudi to end. Hashem needs each and every one of us to be and do something that is unique and unlike anyone else can be or do. And Yudi constantly sought to uncover what that might be. So it's no wonder that you felt important when he interacted with you. It's also no wonder that Yudi was always talking about Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. In every interaction he had with someone else, he would look for a lesson to learn, especially when it wasn't obvious. Yudi was a living example of a lesson the Rebbe taught us by showing us all how the seemingly insignificant and detestable, mundane and downright boring matters of life can be reframed in the most transformative ways to be important and positive, praiseworthy, and uplifting. We all have the God-given potential to make what we anyways have to do into something we love doing with a passion and to feel privileged for the opportunity. It's up to us, if we choose to accept the challenge, to take this to heart and, like Yudi, become ambassadors and living examples of the Rebbe's lesson, to reframe and transform every aspect of our lives and our interactions with others, so that each and every one, however mundane, becomes a powerful and unstoppable, never-yielding force for good. Yudi, I will always carry these special memories and life lessons I have with you and hold them dear to me. You will never stop being the older brother I look up to so much. L'chaim.
And on behalf of the parents, grandparents, someone who has become a very dear friend to us, Dr. Selwyn Spengenthal.
Rabbi Zellman, Rabbi Mendy, Rabbi Moshe, Aaron, Rebbitzins, Sarah, and everyone in this room, and everyone watching remotely. It is an honor and a privilege that you've given me to say a few words tonight. I had a whole speech prepared, but most that I was going to say has already been shared. Because you can see that Yudi was much more than just a rabbi, and just a husband, and just a son, and just a father. He touched every single person whom he met. He touched them with love and care and concern, and made them feel special and brought godliness into this world with whatever he did. I don't want to go through everything that has already been said, because there's such beautiful things that have been expressed. And this room vibrates and resonates with spirituality and love. And I appreciate it. It is very difficult for me to stand here in front of everyone and talk about the loss of a son, because Yudi was not my son-in-law. He was like a son to me. But I do want to share with you a few words, and I've changed my whole talk actually, because what I realized as people were talking, everyone was talking about Yudi as he is and as he was this past year. But we know Yudi going back 17 years, 16 years. And the question comes in, when you live your life, are you consistent? Do you live in a way that is unchanging or is changing always for the better? Do you live a way that you get brought up by your parents and you learn from them, and then you even surpass them in their teachings and their learnings? So I want to firstly thank Sarah for bringing Yudi into our lives. Because Sarah, as you all know, if she makes her mind up, she usually follows through. And we were not Lubavitch, even though I thank the Rabbi for leading us and for helping us and making our whole family religious, because when we grew up, Cheryl and myself, we were traditional Orthodox Jews who didn't keep all the laws and customs. And so when Sarah came and said that she was going to marry Yudi, we were very frightened. Is this going to be disruptive? How are we going to handle this? And in a very short time, Yudi's smile, Yudi's understanding, Yudi's willingness to teach without judgment had us completely around his little finger. He would come down for Pesach, and he would come early, specifically to do all the things. And Cheryl, we wanted to help, and we wanted to welcome him and do whatever he wanted. And he would do all the things that he wanted, and he taught us. You know, you can't just have sugar. You've got to filter the sugar, and have sugar water, and you had to peel the oranges and peel the tomatoes and the potato. And it was phenomenal. And he helped us grow in a way that I don't think we would ever have been able to do. And I want to give you an example how he changed my life. Yudi would come down, Yudi and Sarah would come down every month of Tishrei, because he'd be the chazan and the Baal Korech at Ballantyne. And I was taking them back to the airport, and they had Baruch and Mendy, who were very young. This was about 11 years ago. And I don't know if you know Yudi and Sarah, when they have to go to the airport, they're always, well, certainly in Charlotte, they were always late. So we were rushing like crazy to get to the airport, and we got there 40 minutes before their flight, and they had suitcases and strollers and everything else. And as he was getting out of the car, Yudi turned to me and he said, "Did you put on tefillin today?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you're going to do it now." And I said to him, "Are you crazy? You're going to be late, you're going to miss your flight." Not only that, this was after 9/11, and the police were walking up and down because you couldn't park your car. And he said, no, we're going to do it. And he I was driving the car, he opened the front door, and he said, get up. And he put on tefillin, and we said the Shema, and he went off. And for many, many years, I was toying with the idea of putting on tefillin, but never quite got round to it. But in that minute, he changed my whole understanding of how important it was, because he was prepared to miss his flight for me to put on tefillin. And from that day forth, I've been doing it. And I want to thank Yudi, because it's so grounding, it's so beautiful to do every single day. And that's just one example. I'll give you another example. And I want to talk a little bit about Yudi's love, not just of his family, because it was unbelievable. What Yudi did for his children was beyond understanding. In fact, he would get up early in the morning, he'd make them, lunch or breakfast and get them dressed and then go to shul and then come back and then drive them to Crown Heights. And he was always pleasant, always happy with it. And even in Charlotte, he would come to Charlotte, and when the kids were very little, he would take them to shul for Shachris, for the service. And one Shachris, it was Baruch and Mendy that he had in the stroller. They were about, 3 or 4 and 2. And they were kvetching. And he used to go and give them a pacifier, rock the stroller up and down. And my friend Gary Waldman turned to Yudi and said, "Yudi, why don't you leave the kids at home, come to shul for Shachris, have the good time, and what do you want to do this for? This is your time." And he turned around and he said, he didn't say, "Well, my wife's sleeping," because that might have been true. But what he turned around and he said, "I want the children to hear the men davening. I want the children to hear the men davening." And they were 2 and 3 years old. And that left such an impression on my friend that he said, "Your daughter has married an exceptional man." And I couldn't agree more. And when it comes to Sarah, I have to talk a little bit about not just Yudi, because Yudi by himself would never have been complete without Sarah. And Sarah by herself would never have achieved what she's done in terms of her music, in terms of being a flower that has opened up and become confident and secure. She would have never been able to do that without Yudi. And so, as a team, what we're seeing in this last year has been unbelievable to me. Because I know Sarah, I used to say, "Sarah, how are you doing this? How are you actually writing this stuff, which is so incredible?" Because I don't think I could have made it through the year if it wasn't for Sarah. I just do not think I could have. And this is the type of thing that Yudi did by himself because he believed in in being he believed in the shluchas. He believed in the teaching of the Rabbi. He was completely committed to Hasidus and to Lubavitch. So everyone here spoke a little bit about JNET, and I want to say that he taught me. We were learning partners. Learning partners. He was teaching me. I was just listening. And what he would do is, we were actually in our every Monday night between 8 and 8:30, we would get together. And many times I'd been on call, I'd been up the whole weekend, and I would say, Yudi, I'm so tired, I just don't feel like it, I'll take a rain check. And he would say, no. Even if we just learn for 10 minutes, we're going to learn. And then what he said to me was something which I'll never forget. He said that this time with you, because he said this time with you is not only helping you learn, but it's helping me because I treasure this time. And over the years, we discussed, often we didn't learn. We've just discussed facts of life and what was happening. And I've actually lost my best friend because I miss him. I miss him every Monday night. And still on my phone, it comes up, learning with Yudi, 8 o'clock. I just want to mention a couple of other things. One of the things that Yudi always appreciated was if he was given something, he had such tremendous gratitude that you actually wanted to give him more. It's just incredible. And so, having said this, I just want to say that if he was standing here where I'm standing today, he would express such unbelievable gratitude to this community, to Chani and Zalman. I can't believe it. I cannot believe what this community has done. And in 1 minute, Rabbi Zalman changed my life last week. I'm going to try and share it. He said to me, don't worry about Sarah and the kids, because God led Yudi and Sarah and their family to our community. And we regard it as a privilege and a merit to be able to care for them because they were led to us and we will look after them. And I thought, unbelievable. I can't believe that there can be such an outpouring of real godliness and light. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank everybody in the community. And I want to thank the doctors, Dr. Izarov, Dr. Leiderman, who we were on the phone often. And it was often when we got updates, we would get updates, we couldn't speak to a doctor. We would speak to a medical student with an update. We'd speak to a nurse with an update. And Sarah, Dr. Jonathan Leiderman, and myself would be every day on those updates. And we had no clue what they were going to say. They would give us updates once a day in the afternoon. And Yudi was critically ill. He was on ECMO. He was on the ventilator. And we had no idea what that update would reveal. And after we got this update, we would sit down and we would, over the phone, and we would talk. And I just want to thank Sarah during this time for her unbelievable bravery, because I got to points where I said, no, I don't want to be on the next call. I just can't take it. I can't take the pressure. I can't take the tension, stress. And how Sarah has done it, I don't know. She slept. I couldn't sleep. I know she couldn't sleep. And I think that she's only done it because of all the support she's had from the Rebbitzins in this community and the love that she's been given. So thank you very much. I want to end off with one little story. I want to end off actually with two things. The first thing I want to end off with is the fact that Yudi got out of that hospital. It was miraculous that a man who could be on the ECMO machine, on a ventilator, in paralysis, kept unconscious for weeks on end, could actually get out of the hospital. I think it was a miracle. And what did he do when he got out of that hospital? He told Sarah he wanted to go to the OL. He wanted to go to the OL, and then he wanted to go home. He wanted to be with his family. And I watched the videos, and it was just earth-shattering. What a man. And I think that was a gift that God gave us all, to see him get out, even for a day. It was a gift that God gave Sarah and the children, because I think they'll remember it forever. And the second thing I want to say is that 3 days before he died, Sarah, he was alert. He was very sick. But Sarah FaceTimed me, and she asked me, do you want to speak to Yudi? I said, absolutely. And we spoke, not for long, maybe a couple of minutes. But I was so grateful for that time, because in those couple of minutes, I told him that I loved him. And he said, I love you too, Dad. And then he asked me, he said, did you send the check to JNET? And I'd done it just before the end of the year, so I have to get the tax deduction. And, but then he said something which I'll always remember. And he said, Did you add the $2 to the check? Because every year you've got to give a little more. And I didn't add the $2, but I do want to give it now. And I'm hoping that in his merit it will become $2 million. So I brought up $2, a $2 bill. I was going to give it to Mendy, but I'd like to give it to you so you can be the carrier of it. And may this lead only to lots of tzedakah, lots of mitzvahs, lots of people learning, lots of everything that Yudi wanted. And I thank you so much for everything that you've done. Thank you.
On behalf of JNET, I take this as the deposit towards the $2 million. May God help that should happen quicker than we can imagine. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
As Dr. Spangenthal mentioned, that we take this schus and merit and responsibility very serious. But we can't take the credit because there's a big team, Rabbi Mendy Kotlarski, Suite 302, and the list goes on and on of those who really have and will continue to hopefully help and move things along. But things have to get done as a friend of the family, so we have a little WhatsApp group that is shared between my wife Sarah and myself called The Heroes and Hadassah. Yes, yeah. So yes, I'd like to call up the hero, Sarah, to please share gifts to the children from their father, from Yudi.
It's the wrong day to wear makeup tonight. Mendy, which one of my kids? Who's here? Who's still awake? Come. Okay. On behalf of my family, I just want to thank everyone for believing in us and for being part of this journey. And I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but our family has been chosen by God to go on this journey, and you all chose to go on it with us. So thank you for everyone for being part of our family and for helping us through this. Boys, Tati actually left you guys a couple of gifts, but there's two tonight that I want to share. The first one is I found something in our safe. What's this? And I opened it up, and I see that is a letter from Tati to his children that he wrote. I don't know what year it was. It was a couple of years ago. I know Rabbi Kolarski mentioned that Yudi wrote thank you letters to him. And one thing that we try to do is when we are feeling inspired or feeling gratitude to write it down and to share it with the person. And it can be from when you were 5 years old, if there was a Rabbi or a teacher or someone in your life that made a difference, even if it's 20 years later, go back and tell them. And it's never too late to thank someone. So, Tati, this was a letter that he wrote after the Kinnis, and he was feeling very inspired, and he was very proud. And what Rabbi Kolarski said, he was very, very proud to be a shliach, and it was something that he appreciated every single day. He did not take this for granted. Every day he walked into 770, he walked into Americas, and he was just, he felt so honored and so proud. And I would like to call someone up to translate this letter because I can't read it. So Zadie Dukes, is this something you'd want to do? And I actually have framed for each of the kids one of their favorite pictures with them and Tati with the letter next to it.
Yiddish is not an easy language for me, but I'll do my best here. So, Early Yom Sheni Aleph Kislev Hey Tovshin. I think this might be a Samach Aleph, so which would be the year 2001. Okay. So this was Rosh Chodesh, coming into Rosh Chodesh Kislev after the Kinnis HaShluch, the worldwide Kinnis HaShluchim. To mein teire Kinder sheyichyu, to my dear children, may they live. Heint benacht mir is vorgekommen zu Banquet von the Kinnis HaShluchim. So tonight occurred the banquet of the assembly, the worldwide conference of the Shluchim. Dein Tate hat die Schus, als ich bin a Shliach von Rebben. Your father has the merit that says, I'm a Shliach of the Rebbe. Und das macht ihr teire Kinder euch Shluchim. And this makes you, dear children, also Shluchim. Unser Tafkid als Shluchim is zu wezen jeder Eid, als is a teire Kind von Eberstern, und als wir haben es lieb, und zu wezen wie kennt Teure und Mitzvahs. Our role, our function as Shluchim, is to show every Jew that he is a dear child of God, and that we and that we love him, and to show him how he can perform do Torah and mitzvahs. Bei die Kinus, alle Shluchim von die ganze Welt kommen zusammen und kriegen Chizuk einer von dem anderen. At this conference, all of the Rebbe's Shluchim, the Rebbe's agents for over the whole world, come together and generate strengthen each the other. Und sie lernen Sachen, was kann sie helfen in their shlichus, and they learn various things which can assist them in their mission. Beim End von Kinos is die Banket, was ist a große Suda von I can't read the word here. Kimat 5,000 Menschen. At the end of the conference, there's a banquet, which is a large feast, a large meal with about 5,000 people. The Shluchim bringen sehr bale batim und there's a word I can't read here, but okay, this what's this word right here?
They show a nice video, meweist.
It seems like there's a gimel. Okay, meweist, and they show a very nice video.
Let's go straight to the English.
Okay.
This year was special for two reasons.
Yeah, this year was special for two reasons.
Zadie Spangenthal.
One, Zadie Spangenthal came with Tati, and
the second reason.
And the second is
Mommy's music.
Genutzt. Oh, and they used Mommy's music for part of the video. It
was very nice.
It was very beautiful.
Rabbi Kotlarski.
Rabbi Kotlarski, the one who
tells us to buy ice cream.
the one who tells us to buy ice cream. By the way, have you read this before?
No.
Okay.
But Yiddish is my first language.
Yeah, but it's very hard to read it.
Get it? Straight to the translation.
Yeah, okay.
Afterwards, Mr. Bagaluba.
Afterwards, Mr. Bagalubov,
who sent us money for Baruch's bris.
who sent us money for Baruch's bris.
And the year before Yom Tov, when he had a daughter.
And the previous year before Yom Tov, when a daughter was born to him,
he spoke about his kasher with Chabad.
He spoke about his connection with Chabad and how good he feels to give money to the Shluchim. Tate
immediately wrote.
Tati immediately wrote a thank you letter. With divine providence, it was
in his pocket.
Was in his pocket. Had immediately or previously. What do you mean it was in Vashkaka Pratis if he wrote it after? I don't understand. I think he had it there before. So afterwards,
Rabbi Moshe Nu from Montreal.
Rabbi Moshe Nu from Montreal
mentioned the point as that we are not doing shlichus, but rather we are shluchim.
That it's not that it's not that shlichus is the job that we have, but rather that it's an identity. It's our identity, together with our family, and
that is through making time for family, and that is the ultimate shlichus.
And that is the ultimate. Tati feels very good that he is a shaliach and hat mitten, and he hopes with his whole heart that his children will also be great shluchim.
I love you very much, and hope that Mashiach will come immediately.
Yeah, I love you very much. Hope Mashiach will come right away, and we can see the Rebbe who gave us the tremendous merit. May we see him immediately right away, mamish. Your father, Shner Zalman Yehuda ben Hindi Yechevet Dukes.
Boys, I disappeared. I have one more very, very special gift. It was probably the third day of Shiva, and I got a call from Prestige Embroidery, Yudi's friend, and she said, I have Yudi's gifts for the kids. And I said, what gifts? What are you talking about? And she said, on the day that Yudi came home from the hospital, he called that morning. He called Prestige Embroidery, and he said, I want, tzedakah is a big part of my life, is a big part of what's been happening in the hospital, and I want my kids to value this and to cherish it. And please, can you make them tzedakah pouches with their personal names on them? And they had made these pouches, and they never had the opportunity to bring it. And I found out about this after Yudi had passed already. So I have these pouches from Tati, and on it is embroidered your names, as well as Tati's signature, Love Tati. I also have personal letters, emails, for you guys from Tati from November. He wrote to every single one of you. I printed it out straight from my email so that you could see when the date was, and it's a personal letter from Tati to you. And there's also something very special inside each tzedakah pouch. Rabbi Krinsky, who's the Rebbe's secretary, wanted to gift each of you with the Rebbe dollar and a coin that the Rebbe gave out on the Lag Bomer parade. So just know that Tati's so proud of you, and he loves you so much, and he's always with you.
The evening has formally ended. We are sure that the messages that were shared this evening will go a long way and guide many through life. I want to thank all who made this evening possible on behalf of the Dukes Mishpacha. Thank you. Thank you, Suite 302. Thank you, JNET. Thank you all who helped make this evening the most meaningful evening that it was. And looking forward that in the future we should get together happy occasions. And yes, we're getting ready for a big simcha as Baruch's Bar Mitzvah approaches. Looking forward and counting down to the big simcha. For all of not yet daven Ma'ariv, there will be a minyan Ma'ariv.